Two definite outsiders, and I think it was a great friendship. And yeah, love. I think you feel love for your great friends, and there was a lot of care between them as well. So I totally understood why she would, even if she thought that he was gay, say it was all right and I'll marry you, because he offered her a life and a kind of he offered her the exploration of what she really loved. You know, the continual conversation, and I think the other choice was sort of being chained to a kitchen sink, and who wouldn't go for that internal life?
We have some time for your questions for anyone on stage. There are two microphones here. We're going to ask you to please go to the microphone. There's someone right here. Go ahead.
I had to catch my breath because I'm literally a fan of all four of you. I'm so happy you're here, and I'm so happy I'm here to see you. Thank you. So they said at the end in the closing comments of the movie that this information wasn't released until like 50 years after. Do you have any source material other than the script? Were you able to research to develop your roles individually and maybe collectively?
There are many fantastic biographies. One in particular, Andrew Hodges, and also accounts of Alan as he was. I was fortunate enough to meet and talk to a couple of people who knew him, were related to him as well as work colleagues, and yeah, that was very important because there is no footage, there's no audio recording either of him. We tried to track one down at the BBC but failed, so I don't really know if an audio recording exists of him, but very specific descriptions of how he was with people in different groups and circumstances. And I remember something that one of his nieces told me, which again, to just bring it back into something ordinary that we can all relate to, he was extraordinarily good with children. She was very young, her memory of him was old, but very clear. He would treat them as human beings, as adults, not things that should be seen and not heard. No sort of Victorian distancing, and he would be amusing, he'd be generous, he'd make them laugh. He played games like playing a game of chess with his back turned to the board to sort of show off and make them giggle. And you know, a lot of people, you know, there's a lot of evidence of how he spoke and how he made eye contact and the warmth you felt when he did, but how he would be very diffident and sort of removed when he wanted to be. So yeah, no, I got a lot of help on that. I mean, a hell of a lot of heavy lifting is already done by Graham's script. There are such extraordinary clues into his character in that work alone. So a lot of what I did outside of just working on the script was just to kind of clarify and bring in, you know, a few more details. For example, at the end, the reason I was limping was because I discovered the doctor that had given him Sorry? Oh, can I tell him? The doctor that was giving him weekly estrogen injections, probably at the Manchester Royal Infirmary. And this was a story that Alan told to one of his colleagues out in Manchester, who's working there in artificial intelligence on new builds of computers. He said, well, the man who's been giving me the weekly injections is a little bit embarrassed, so he put this slow-release device in my hip, which is triggered by metabolism. Men who have had prostate cancer often have a similar device to release estrogen to counteract the ferocity of testosterone and what that does to cancer. And it's the same with this treatment. Someone's put this in my hip, and you know, the 2 years are up, and it's still releasing estrogen into my system. And Shearing's turned to the aghast colleague and said, "It's not really cricket, is it?" and walked away. But the horrific truth of why I gave him a limp is because in some moment of desperation, this man who was incredibly physically connected to his world, both as a sexual male and also as an athlete. You know, he wasn't just a brain in a jar. He was very much part of his world. His body meant something to him. And this man, this mind, this body, at some point in a dark moment of this horrific treatment, took a kitchen carving knife and tried to gouge it out of his body. And we don't show that in the film, but that was my way of honouring that particularly horrific truth. So extraordinary things about the man, humorous humanizing things about the man, but also some pretty dark and despicable truths as well about how he was treated.
I just want to comment one thing about the thing that Benedict is saying, like the authenticity of his story. I mean, a lot of people ask me, what did you guys made up? What did you invent? What did you add to the story? And it shouldn't say based on a true story. I think it should. This is a true story, and everything that's in the film happened, and it was a big responsibility for us. Like the school you see is the school that Alan Turing went to. There's a little chapel there, and there's a memorial plate from Christopher Morgan, which was put there, and it was just reminding us this sort of humbling responsibility that these were these hallways, this was where it all happened, where it all began, and we shot it at Bletchley, and every enigma in the film is actual enigma machines from the war. The machine he constructed is based on Turing's design, more or less looks like that way. So it was a huge responsibility to try and be accurate and try to recreate his world and his life.
Thank you. There's a question here.
Yes, thank you very much. The film was a real treat. I'm very glad you got your first-hand choice of the star cast, because it's quite a delicious star cast. Kiera, you're just gorgeous. And Benedict, I think you're actually quite yummy yourself. No, you really are quite yummy, and
there is a question coming, is there?
There are actually
Alan Turing's quite yummy.
Thank you. There are actually two questions, and it's to Benedict. Which aspect of that role did you identify most with? That's question one. We've established that you're not a war hero or a math genius or a gay icon, but I am curious what aspect of that you associated yourself with. But the second question, which is a real important question, is in celebration of the theme of the film, which is that it's all right to embrace difference, and it's okay to be a little bit different. And I'd like to ask Benedict, would I be able to feast on your yumminess and request for...
Move on, I'm sorry. Let's move over here.
Oh, the jingle jangle of stuff. Yeah, so to be serious for a minute, you know, I like I said before, it is impossible to encapsulate all the extraordinary nature of this man. And the one thing I really hooked into was the idea that, as I think we all do, we are all, at certain points of our life, affected by people or by moments, and we're all capable of great ideas. Not necessarily as great as him, but I found that, like I said before, he was so conditioned by his circumstance. He wasn't some autistic or Asperger, and you know, those labels are very dangerous to immediately attach to a character if you know anything about people who do have Asperger's or autism. And as far as I could tell, it seemed there's just a direct understanding, a direct correlation between how he was brought up, his experiences at school, the people he encountered, and who he was in his behaviour, how he was in his behaviour. And it's also the thing that brought him great. I mean, even in the trials of his last 2 years of his life, when estrogen was ripping apart his body and destroying the faculties of his mind, he managed to turn that into a curiosity and focus his work in science on morphogenesis, this idea of the changing of cells, the manipulation of them and how they mutate and adapt to circumstances in their environment or stimuli. And it was just a word and a question that made him begin to understand how to transform the process of mathematics into something that was mechanical, could be realized in a machine. Computers originally were like wrens. They were literally rooms full of women who would be doing endless calculus. If you were a computer, you were one of those women, and he just from a word imagined the physical world and the mental world colliding and coming into one idea, which is just extraordinary. A very, very sensitive soul, a very sensitive human being, and that's what I tried to apply myself to him.
Thank you. Not to cut you off.
My yumminess.
Let's just go over here. We can take one question here.
Hi. It was a really amazing film, really great to watch, and I think it's something that's really important, and it's great that people are going to see it and appreciate it. So my question is, taking on these very serious roles, but also very important ones as well, how do you think that changed how you played the character, and how do you think you'll, how it'll impact your future roles?
No, you first. No, I really want to hear you first. I need to do a bit of recovering. Oh, right. What was the question again?
How do you think this will impact your next role?
How will this
impact your next role you take on?
Hopefully not at all, because I'm playing Richard III, so... You learn something with every job. You don't necessarily get to practice that in your next role, but yeah.
No one else? All right. Let's go to the very last question then, right here. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Benedict, I was wondering if there was any film footage at all, any voice recordings of Alan Turing that you could refer to? I'd love...
I've already said there isn't. There was.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was just terrific. I loved your interpretation. And I had never heard of this before. Have you? Enigma? Have you heard of that before the film was made? Had you heard of this in World War II? I'm sorry.
You got to speak into the microphone.
I'm sorry. Very sorry. Before the film was made, had you heard personally of Enigma and this World War II incident? I had never heard you had.
Well, yes, I had. There's a superb drama that Derek Jacobi starred in called Breaking the Code, which was the first time I'd heard of Turing, and it was dramatised. It was a stage play, but it was also filmed for television. And beyond that, what we're taught at school would have been, a subject that, it's something that's known about, but not in the detail that Graham's script uncovered and that I then investigated further. But I did know a little bit about that world, about Bletchley, about what the extraordinary people did, what the ordinary people did that was so extraordinary in that environment.
We are going to have to end it there, unfortunately. I just want to ask you to please join me in thanking once again